Hello and welcome back to Untitled-2 podcast. My name is Connor.
This is Ash.
Oh, changing it up.
Changing up. Excuse me.
You could have done that before.
I know.
I mean, you're the one who pressed record.
I was saying other things. Did you leave it in? It's fine.
Okay.
We're loose.
So, with both, recently, me
Me before
week
you.
afterwards,
Yeah.
got the platinum for God of War.
We did.
The reason mine was a week afterwards is because you're far superior.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's the only reason.
The words written on the edge of your lip.
You could see them scrolling behind, but my eyelids just ready to come down your mouth.
No, because there was a bug in the game. Much like the misfortune I had with Senua's Sacrifice and with Assassin's Creed 4, I was unable to get the final achievement trophy because there was a bug in the game that stopped me.
Right.
And I had to replay the game, like speed run it to get that one tiny thing that I needed. So with God of War, what happened was when you get the second Frozen Flame, which I used to upgrade the Leviathan axe, if you die just after beating the creature that drops it from the enemies around him, you don't. It doesn't go to your lost items. It's just gone
Forever.
Yeah. They may have fixed the bug now, but if they did, they didn't give me a way to retrieve it.
Yeah.
Without having to play it again. So I just powered through the game on the easiest difficulty and did a bit of Niflheim, about 20 minutes in Niflheim, and I'd done it. Problem was, when I got to Niflheim, enemies were like rank 7 and 8, but because I hadn't been upgrading or collecting any items in chests or anything like that, I was rank 4. So I could only do that first area. Just over and over doing that little first bit. And then I figured out I can do the like mid sections between the fight areas where sometimes there's chests. And if I'm lucky enough to find one of the runic chests, then there's like 1,000 mist echoes in there. And I needed 5,000.
The Narnia ones. Yeah.
That only happened once though, so I started to grind. Plus you need like 1,000 just to get into the center room where the chests are. So
the Narnia chests that appear in Niflheim, the first one's fine. You know, it's always in the center bit in there. Like, sometimes I did a run where it wasn't there, but most of the time it spawned. That's easy enough to get because there's like once you know where all the
it's
rooms
just the
are.
3 corners.
Yeah, exactly.
Of
you just know it to look up and
the maze. Yeah.
But this the other one that appears. I don't know. Is there 3 that can appear in there or just 2? But there's
it's always in the mid room.
Yeah, it's always in like one of the mid sections.
There's not that high of a chance of them appearing.
Yeah. But I only, out of all of them that appeared for me, there was only one that I couldn't get because it's always those bell ones you've got to make them all ring at the same time. One of them was so far back, I just could not get the axe to throw it. It always fell short. Yeah,
you had to aim so high, and then like if you missed the shot on one of the other ones and you had to go back to the first one, you could never like just go straight back to that height because
it was ridiculous though. Because I pressed myself up as far in that corner as I could.
Yeah,
and I was just trying every angle and it just would not hit. I was holding out R1 to charge up a throw. I was holding R2. Just nothing was making it go further.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'd like maybe I don't know, like 1/20th of the bar or something like that, and I was just like, right, let's go.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It was like the first mid section as well, so I still had a lot of the run to go.
Yeah,
managed to get there. A weird thing happened where like the bar fully depleted, but like 2 minutes later, and I was still running around alive and stuff. So I was like, fuck it.
That never happened to me. I never managed to get it to deplete.
There was that one run where I couldn't get that Narnia chest, and I was so stubborn. I was like, I need it.
Yeah,
I didn't need it because like I only need to do one more run, and I got every tear and chest in there.
I had a Valkyrie fight where she had like a few pixels of health left, and I had no health. Like seriously, there was none of my health bar that you could see, and I was like, "Oh shit! Why am I still stood up?" And just like throwing my axe at her and trying to avoid her and stuff. And she did that. You know where some of them will fly at you and grab you by the face and just slam you into the ground. She did that, and I stayed alive after that. I don't know how. It was ridiculous.
There was only like 2 that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
There's one, the first one that does that big angelic slam thing, that holy slam, and it's like a one-hit kill.
Yeah.
That one pissed me off because there was numerous times I got used to all their attack patterns, right?
Somebody on Reddit.
It reminds me to mute my phone as well. Thanks for that. So I got used to a pattern so I could avoid everything. I was awesome at it, right?
Yeah.
Got her down to like the last few pixels of her health, and I was like, this R3 is prompt's gonna pop up any second now, and then it just all falls apart, mate. She does a move that I just didn't avoid in time, and then she hits me and it takes off like half my health, and then she turns around, does something else, and I'm like, no, and I just die. Did that a few times. And the other one was the one that spawns enemies. She pissed me off quite a lot. That was the first one I ever fought.
That was the quickest one I beat, but I didn't beat any of them until I finished the game, and then I went through and did them all.
Right, I was beating them as I was coming across them. So when I met, she was the first one I found, and I wasn't exactly powered for it, like leveled for it.
Yeah.
So like half my axe didn't have the skills, or the blades didn't have the skills either, and my armor was shit. So it took me quite a few tries, but I managed to do it. But yeah, that's my experience with those Valkyries.
The only one that I really struggled with was the fucking Queen, mate.
Surprisingly, I didn't struggle too much with her, because I'd already fought the other ones.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you did as well, but I fought them a few times because I was on a high difficulty, and obviously there's more room for failure. Yeah. So I was really clued into like which animation leads into which attack.
Well, when I replayed it, I realised that I hadn't been reading the skills when I was buying them. I was just getting them because they were there to buy. So there was loads of things I could do that I didn't even know I could do, like throwing your axe and then holding L2 and R2 to bring it straight back to you and then slam into the ground.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
But so I was just fighting with the basic moves from the beginning, basically. But even though I knew I would have to replay the game, I still wanted to get all the trophies I could in that playthrough. So I stayed up one night when I got a chance to play. It was on a weekend, and I was up until like 2:45, and the last thing I had to do was get the Valkyrie Queen. So I was like, I could probably do it in like 20 minutes. And I went to bed at about 4:10.
No, I knew you could do that when you throw your axe and you hold L2 and then press R1 or R2.
It came in handy on my second playthrough, but I didn't.
I didn't realise I had that skill at first either. But when I was fighting a Valkyrie, I was throwing my axe at her a lot because I didn't want to keep away from her because she was kicking my ass. Yeah. And one time I just got fed up with her and I was going to run over to her and start punching her out. And I still had hold of L2 without realising, and it just pulled the axe out of thin air and just started smashing her with it. I was like, wow, I'm going to do that more often.
That is how I found out. And I was like, wait, what else can I do? So I just went and looked at
I don't know, it must have been just the way that we were playing it, because we had loads of XP all the time, and so we were just mass buying skills. Because we were doing all the extra side shit and stuff like that. I think if you just went through the story, you'd probably be more reserved about which skills you were buying. And
exactly, yeah. So it's probably obvious by now, but we're gonna do a spoiler. Fucking hell, what am I trying to say? We're going to talk about God of War. We're already talking about God of War, but we're not giving a shit about spoilers this time.
Because it's very spoiler filled. So.
Yeah, because by the time this episode comes out, you know.
Maybe throw a spoiler alert on the title.
Yeah, I will.
Since we've already been talking about some things that people might consider a spoiler.
Exactly, yeah. But basically what I wanted to do today was do a Norse Mythology special in light of us finishing God of War and me getting back into Norse mythology.
Oh, I love Norse mythology.
So I've pulled out a brilliant book by Kevin Crossley Holland, which has been rewritten multiple times since 1980 on Norse mythology, and it is so interesting. So using that and the material we've sort of picked up from playing God of War, I'm going to do like a cross section of the story and actual mythology and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I'm very interested in a specific character who I thought, like, I'm not going to say anything right off the bat. We'll work up into that spoiler.
Yeah,
but there's a character in it who I assumed this person wasn't someone else, but in the game they said it was the same person. I was like, I don't know if that's true or not. So it'd be good if that character's in the book. We'll get to it later.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. But yeah, we'll get to it later. So instead of flicking through this book and being like, oh, there's also this, I've taken a fucking shit ton of notes. It's the most notes I've ever had for a podcast. It's the most prepared I've ever been for a podcast.
Wow.
So I'm really excited for this. I've been excited for this since I started reading this book again. So I'm just going to kick off. So the book has an introduction section, which is not about Norse mythology. It's just about the sort of lifestyle of Vikings and how the mythology fits into it and everything. And so there's some really cool stuff about Vikings in there. So I'm just going to start with that.
For it.
So one of the first things is that Vikings killed and ate bears as regularly as sort of we would eat and kill cows.
Wow.
They just went out and hunted bears.
Probably not as regularly as modern times, because we're culling cows, harvesting the meat 1,000 times a second.
I always thought it was just like an dramatization. Fucking hell. Of
dramatization?
Of Vikings that, you always see them with like bear heads on walls and like bear capes and stuff, but that's not actually that far from reality, because they did actually just go out and fuck bears up.
I read that the berserkers, they had like a special class of warriors called berserkers who wore basically nothing but like bear skins and stuff from the kills that they had.
Yeah.
And they were like mental. Like they were always the first one running a war and stuff. And
I have another book which is less about mythology, more about Viking culture, Viking arts and poetry. They were fucking phenomenal poets. Which does go into stuff like that, but maybe I'll save it for another episode. I was going to say at the end of this episode, but I'll say it now. After listening to this, if you want to hear more about Vikings, you want us to do another Viking special episode, trust me, I would be very happy to do that. So just let us know. Did you know that Russia gets its name from Vikings?
I did not know
They
that.
used to be called the Rus.
I knew that.
R-U-S.
Yeah.
And that's where Russia got its name from.
Right.
Also, the book says, but I will point out that Viking mythology is very it's not very well documented, and everybody has different ways of telling different stories, and the gods have different names in each story.
God, like Odin has like 100 names himself.
There's a bit in the story where in one of the stories in this book where it's just a full paragraph of him telling somebody what people call him.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Like they call him Grim, don't they, and stuff like that. And like there's loads of others, but like Grim's always the one that stuck with me the most.
So there's a great I know I said I wouldn't just open the book and read quotes from it, but there is a quote that I really wanted to read, which I thought was really cool. This is a guy's recounting of the first time he saw a Viking in the year 922.
Right.
He basically saw them landing. Anyway, I'll just read it. I saw the Rus when they arrived on their trading mission and anchored at the river Atul. Never had I seen people of more perfect physique. They are tall as date palms and reddish in colour. They wear neither coat nor mantle, but each man carries a cape which covers one half of his body, leaving one hand free. Each woman carries on her bosom a container made of iron, silver, copper, or gold, its size and substance depending on her man's wealth.
I've read that before.
He was clearly very impressed upon seeing them for the first time, just in awe.
Was it like some Middle Eastern trader guy?
Yeah.
He also has a paragraph where he explains the musical style and the singing style of the Vikings, and it's quite funny.
Oh, cool.
He was not impressed, to say the least.
Fair.
I'll do a quick Google search if you want to keep talking about stuff.
I can get you his name, it'll help you.
Yeah, go for it.
Hold on.
Holding on.
His name, an Arab diplomat and diarist, Ibn Fadlan.
Ibn Fadlan.
Yeah. Describe the Vikings. So another thing I thought that was quite cool is in Christian culture, when you die, you judge based on your actions in life. If you were a good person, basically, you got good karma, you go to heaven. If you're a dick, you're going to go to hell. But in Viking culture, you only got to go to heaven if, or their heaven, which is Valhalla. You only got to go there if you died in battle, in great battle. If you died out of cowardice or sickness, if you just got ill and died, you went to hell. Can you imagine being on your deathbed, dying of an illness that you cannot possibly hope to defeat, and just being like, fuck, this is it, I'm going to hell. I should have gone into battle.
Yeah. You've been like, fuck Helheim, I need someone to come and fight me now.
Yeah.
I know, like, fucking... It's like a really cool thing to have, actually. Like, it gives soldiers a peace of mind. Like, if you die, you're going to go to Valhalla and you're going to be trained for Odin's army at the end of the world and all that. That'd be really cool. If it was true. I hope it is true. I want to die in battle now. I can't find the paragraph where he talks about how they sing.
It's okay. Do you want to leave it for now and we'll find it for next episode or something?
Yeah.
So Freya, who in God of War is the witch of the woods, and Balder's mother. Yeah, which
this is what I was referencing. Like, I always read that Balder's mother was called Frigg.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew that's what you would say. So, in some stories they're the same person. In other stories they're not the same person, but they always fill the same roles and have the same purpose. So the author of the book says you might as well just consider him the same person.
Yeah. All right, cool. Because I read that they were different people. Yeah. But yeah, it makes sense that they'd be the same person with how undocumented the whole mythology is.
In God of War, Freya is a Vanir god.
Yeah.
Which I'm very confused about even after reading these stories, because sometimes she seems to be Vanir, sometimes she seems to be Aesir. But one person who always seems to be Vanir is her brother, Freya.
And it's spelled Freyr or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And it's like pronounced more like Frey.
Originally, he was a woman, but somewhere along, down the line he became a man. Just people started referring to him as a he and not a she. Whenever he was depicted... Or not all the time, but most of the time, whenever he was depicted, he had a gigantic dick.
Wow.
Yeah, there were just cave carvings and shit of this god called Freya with this huge dick.
Good on Freya, man.
Apparently he's a fertility god, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Apparently most of the Vanir were, but there you go. Freya's parents, in some stories, were brother and sister. And a lot of gods look down on her because of that.
Yes. Okay.
I really wanted to remember as many names as possible, because everyone and everything in Viking mythology has a name. There's a story I'll tell you later about Fenrir, and the chains that he was chained up with have names. The boulders he was trapped with have names. I didn't bother remembering those because to me that's pretty redundant. Yeah. So I haven't noted those down. But obviously I really encourage you go and... I've left some stories out as well because I didn't want to just like fucking spoil the whole book, and I want people to go and make an effort to learn more if they're actually interested in this. But I tried to get as much as I could that seemed pertinent to God of War. And also some stuff which is pertinent to the Thor movie series as well, because that's just kind of interesting to draw the parallels there.
Yeah, Marvel really went, like, they took their creative freedom with the...
Yeah, with some things. With other things, you're a bit like, whoa, really? Well, they kept that in. So.
Like Thor's hammer. Yeah. They really took some creative liberties with that.
Why?
Well, if I remember correctly, in actual mythology, it's not... Like, Odin didn't say, like, curse it so whoever's worthy can wield it.
Oh, no, anyone can pick it up.
Well, yeah, apparently it's he's got a special belt and some gloves that give him the extra strength to wield it. Anyone else would, like, be ripped apart by it or something like that. That's what I read anyway.
It hasn't been mentioned, but it's not far from... Yeah. Like, it's not impossible that
also,
that is the truth.
So it can't do the whole throwing and bring it back thing.
It can, but there's a... there's a sort of flaw in the story there, but we'll get to that anyway. I've got stuff about that.
Anyway, before we carry on, I found the little sentence on the singing.
Just ignored me and kept looking anyway.
Sure. Even worse, apparently, was their singing. I've never heard any more awful singing than the singing of the people of Schleswig. I don't know. It's a groan that comes out of their throats, similar to the bark of dogs, but even more like a wild animal.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Makes sense, though.
I don't know, because there's that band in there.
Highland. Dope band. Love them.
I could listen to that all day, mate. In fact,
So
some
good.
days I do.
Yeah, but that's what I mean,
really
like,
cool.
it's like throat singing, in it?
Yeah.
That they do. And I don't know, it makes sense that the Vikings would be into that.
Yeah.
They're like pre-metal.
Uh-huh. Vikings were very metal.
Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, so Heimdall had 9 mothers. How does that work?
Yeah.
9...
Do you reckon Vikings were doing a lot of drugs?
I reckon everyone was doing a lot of drugs back then, right? So the number 9 is very important. It's important in a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
The 9 comes up a lot. There's 9 realms.
Mm-hmm.
Heimdall's 9 mothers. Odin learns 9 charms. No, he learns 18 charms, which is double 9. It's theorized that 9 is so important in a lot of religions because it symbolizes the end of a cycle, because it's the last single digit number, which, fair enough. Can't really argue with that, can you? Going back to Heimdall, not only can he see all there is to see, as Marvel depicts quite well, he can also, quote, hear the grass growing on the earth and the wool on sheep.
Wow. That must be really annoying.
Just constantly hearing.
Just like...
But I thought it was a really cool quote that made him seem really cool, didn't it? So...
Yeah. I bet you could. Like, if you could somehow get... It'd be easier with grass, but like a sheep, if you could somehow get a sheep to be perfectly still and record its hair growing over a series of days and then speed up the recording or something like that,
yeah,
you'd be able to hear that.
So, this next one is very pertinent to God of War. And if you're not sure about whether you wanted to hear spoilers or not, now is the time to decide, because this is the spoiler. So,
let's do it.
Either you stick around or you leave.
Give you 5 seconds. Just kidding, let's do it.
So, listen to this quote. Ragnarok is precipitated by the death of Balder, the gentle and beloved son of Freya, who is felled by a mistletoe dart thrown by his brother How, a blind god whose aim is guided by the evil Loki.
Yeah, I knew this.
Yeah, you read it as we were playing the game.
I knew it anyway, but like... My Norse mythology is rusty at best, and so like when I kept hearing the name Balder, I was like, first off, like Balder can't be hurt by anything. So when he said he couldn't feel it, I was like, oh no, a god like that.
yeah.
And then someone said Balder, and I was like, oh, obviously. And then I was like, where have I heard Balder from? And then so I googled it. It was like, obviously, he's like his death is the catalyst of Ragnarok.
Yeah,
Ragnarok is like one of the first deaths that leads up to it.
But that's a very exciting bit of information in it, because obviously there's 2 more games coming.
Yeah, well, when I was playing the game, everything all started clicking. Moments before it happened. So
many things were like clicking together as you go through it.
Yeah, and it was all. I always figured it out moments before it happened, and I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, I knew that. Freya went around the whole of every living realm and asked all living creatures not to harm her son. And he was like, they portray him as such a lovable guy. Like everyone loves him. So it was all like, yeah, of course, man, we love Balder.
No, he's a really cool guy in the original myths.
He probably was in God of War as well, but we only met him after the whole thing happened and he couldn't feel anything.
Yeah, when he was cursed.
But yeah, she either overlooked mistletoe or just decided mistletoe's a piece of shit. No one's gonna. It's not harmful at all.
Actually, know how true that is. Mistletoe is actually a twig with a lot of bird shit on it.
Yeah,
that's what mistletoe originally meant.
But yeah, like either she overlooked it or she just assumed that it was not a threat at all, so she never asked it. And then Loki finds out, and he crafts. I always read it as a spear. He crafts a spear out of mistletoe.
I see.
And then gives it to Balder's brother and tricks him into throwing it at Balder, and it kills him.
Well, it says mistletoe dart here, but it could be any number of things, really.
That's just like a small spear in it, so...
Yeah. But yeah, Hal was blind, and Loki guided him, which obviously isn't how it happened in God of War, but...
No, but I've heard as well, like, other stories, how it was Loki who killed him anyway. Like, Loki threw it and threw the spear.
Something else which could be a hint as to what we're getting in the next God of War games is that Baldur has a brother named Hermod.
Mm-hmm.
I seriously hope the mics don't pick up the fucking toilet flushing. Called Hermod, who ventures into hell.
It was like very apt actually, because he said Hermod and it was like toilet flush. No one likes Hermod.
He ventured into hell to rescue Baldur after he was killed. Oh. So it could be that our dear friend Baldur is in Helheim. Yeah. Freya was known to be overtly sexual.
Oof.
And freely gave herself away.
I read this as well.
One time, selling herself to a group of 4 dwarves as payment for a fertility necklace. I have more information about that, and we'll come back to that. Okay. Because that's a very interesting story. But, yeah. So, I'm now going to tell you how the Vikings told the story of basically what we would tell as the Big Bang now. How the realms came to be.
Okay.
Except Niflheim and Muspelheim, as they were already there.
Yeah, okay.
So, Niflheim, unlike in God of War, is actually a freezing, snowy, cold realm.
I was thinking that when I was playing it.
Yeah. The cold air from Niflheim reached the hot air of Muspelheim inside this gigantic emptiness, which they called the Gogunga Gap, or something like that. I didn't write it down, so it could be... It definitely ends in Gap.
Okay.
And that formed a liquid. And there's a theme in Norse mythology of life being born from just liquid, which, isn't too far from how it actually happens.
Too far from actual truth, is it?
From this liquid, an evil giant was born called Ymir, who you may have heard of while playing through God of War. As he slept, he would sweat a lot in his sleep. And from that liquid, the race of giants was born.
Yeah.
Alongside Ymir, a cow, a gigantic cow, was also born in the same way that Ymir was born, called Ordumla. Ymir sustained himself on the 4 flowing rivers of milk coming from Ymir's teats.
Giant teats.
Yeah, and meanwhile the cow was constantly licking away at ice from Niflheim until man was born from it. And that's how man was made. Buri was the first man who had a son called Bor, who married an ice giant and had 3 children, Odin, Vili, and Vi. These 3 children eventually killed Ymir because they were tired of how much of a dick he is. Mm-hmm. And from Ymir's corpse, they used the flesh to create earth, bones to create mountains, teeth and shattered bones to create rocks. They used his skull to create the sky. They used his brains as clouds and his blood as the ocean. And they surrounded the earth with so much of this ocean that no man would ever even think to try crossing it. Which isn't quite so far from the flat earth theories that we have going on at the moment. In the 4 corners of the realm, I couldn't find any other reference to this, and I'm not sure how true it is, but it's a pretty cool concept if this is where it came from. But in the 4 corners of the realm, they placed dwarves. The dwarves were called North, East, West, and South.
That's cool.
The dwarves, the race of dwarves came from maggots that grew on the corpse of Ymir after he died. Which, if they're... Vikings clearly didn't know where maggots came from if they thought that they just started growing out of his flesh, but fair enough.
Not a love for the dwarves there.
No.
Imagine telling a story like, but what about dwarves? Where do dwarves come from? Fucking maggots, mate.
The sun and moon are gods, which I'm sure you knew.
Yeah, every fucking religion out there makes the sun and the moon gods.
They're very similar to Greek religion. They are racing across the sky in horse-drawn chariots.
Yeah.
However, in Viking mythology, they have a motivation for doing this, which is that wolves are chasing them, which was the theme for one of the puzzles in God of War.
I believe the Egyptians believe the sun and the moon are gods, and they're in an eternal battle. And during the day, the sun god is got the upper hand, and during the night, the moon god's got the upper hand. Similar shit across a lot of fucking...
In Viking culture, the sun and moon are gods, and day and night are completely separate gods.
Okay.
Which doesn't make too much sense, but there you go. So moving away from the birth of the realms, here's one character who I've really grown fond of in God of War, Mimir.
Mimir.
Let's learn a
There's
bit
not a lot known about Mimir that I've come to research. Like, it's not very well known whether he was a god or just a regular person.
Right. So Mimir was one of many gifts from the Aesir to the Vanir gods. And he was sent alongside a powerful warrior called Honir. Mimir's weakness was that he wasn't a great fighter, but he was a very intelligent man. And Honir's weakness was the opposite.
Muppet.
Honir was... Oh, yeah, I've already said that. The Vanir, whenever Honir was away from Mimir, suspected that the Aesir gods had sent them an idiot on purpose to try and sabotage them in some way. So, in anger, they cut off Mimir's head.
Yeah.
And sent it back to the Aesir as a message. Odin then...
happens differently in the game if we're drawing parallels.
A lot differently, yeah. Odin himself preserved it using herbs and other like spices and stuff, so that it would not decay.
Probably paprika in that. Everyone loves paprika.
He wanted to ensure that it wouldn't decay, and a god who was only referenced as the High One, sang charms over it to reanimate it and allow Mimir to speak once again. So he was actually just a talking head in mythology as well as in God of War. There's some more to that about Odin putting him by a well, and he guarded this well, which was by one of the roots of the great world tree Yggdrasil. There's 3 of those, one in Midgard, one in Asgard, I think, and one in Niflheim?
Right.
Or Helheim? Or maybe Jotunheim. Anyway, there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
And he's guarding the one in Midgard, I believe. And also there, Odin left his horn, which would be used to summon all living creatures upon the coming of Ragnarok.
Yes. Also, what I found interesting in the game, when you first meet the world serpent and he rises out of the water and he speaks to you.
Yeah.
In mythology, apparently because he sleeps with his tail in his mouth.
Yeah.
And apparently the moment he wakes up and releases his tail, that's when Ragnarok begins.
Oh.
And obviously he didn't have his tail in his mouth there, so I thought maybe that was like a subtle sort of like, yo, Ragnarok's about to happen, bitch.
I see.
Because obviously everything that happens in God of War is leading up to that. I got the feeling like anyway.
Of course it is. Well, that's the end of the cycle basically in Norse mythology. So obviously,
I also really thought it's a really cool concept that today all these gods don't exist anymore because Ragnarok already happened and stuff.
Yeah,
and I thought it was really cool that like Kratos is basically going around all the world and he's going to kill all these pantheons and like if today like it could be in our timeline and shit like that. So today is a result of everything Kratos did back then. Yeah,
I saw somebody on Reddit told a really great story about Kratos getting in a tussle with God and Jesus and like it was funny. So speaking of the world tree Yggdrasil, Yggdrasil is a home to many creatures. Upon its actual branches and trunk. Most notably Nidhogg, the dragon who gnaws on the roots of the tree. So he constantly just lays there chewing the roots. And between mouthfuls of root, he sends a squirrel named Ratatosk running up to the top of the tree to deliver insults to an eagle who sits up there with a hawk on his nose. the eagle then gives insults to Center Nidhogg, and this squirrel just runs up and down the tree all day, sending insults between the two.
There's a game called Nidhogg.
Yeah. It's good. I've played it. It's quite funny.
Yeah, when I've not played it, but I've seen gameplay footage of it.
Yeah.
And when I was first playing, I was like, why is it called Nidhogg? And then every time you finish a level, you go to the right, don't you? And that big dragon comes and swallows you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why it's called Nidhogg.
So one thing I wanted to do is read to you what 18 powers Odin has.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was thinking of doing this in a Scottish accent because it's pertinent, and my Scottish accent has actually improved since I've been playing God of War because I'm constantly hearing Mimir, Mithrin all the time. But I thought better of that because since then my Scottish accent has gone drastically downhill again, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
So Odin hung off the world tree for several days. I think it was 9 days actually.
Probably.
And during that time, he gathered 18 charms, which would make him the most powerful god. So I'm just
2 charms a day. That's some good progress.
So I'm just going to read it to you, I think, rather than trying to explain what they are. So the charms I know are not known by the wives of kings or by any man. The first is called Help because it can comfort grief and lessen pain and cure sickness. I know a second. Any man who hopes to become a healer needs to know it. That's all it says. So I guess it just heals.
All right.
I know a third. If I should sorely need help to hold back my enemy, I can blunt my opponent's blade and soften his staff so he cannot wound me.
Okay.
I know a fourth. If anyone should bind me hand and foot, this charm is so great that the locks spring apart, releasing my limbs. I can walk free. These get really funny by the end, by the way.
Okay.
You're going to enjoy this. I know a fifth. If I should see a well-aimed arrow speeding to its mark, I can catch it however fast it flies. I have only to fix it with my eye. It's like fucking Viking superhero. I know a sixth. If anyone thinks to finish me by sending a sapling's roots engraved with runes, that hero, full of spleen, will only destroy himself. I'm guessing a god's weakness is a sapling's roots engraved with runes.
At least Odin's is.
Or perhaps that is a wand, because they did have magic wands back then. So, well, they didn't actually physically
Unless
have them.
that is legit fucking Odin's weakness, and no one knew until he said that.
Yeah. I know a seventh. If I should see the whole roof burst into flames over the heads of my chosen comrades, I can quench the blaze, however fierce it may be. I know the charm. So he's a firefighter as well. I know an eighth. All men would be well advised to learn it. If hatred takes root in men's minds, I can uproot it. I know a ninth. If I should need to save my ship in a storm, I can calm the wind that whips off wave crests and put the sea to sleep.
Okay.
I know a tenth. If ever I see witches flying on rafters, I can sing so that they go into a whirl and cannot change back into their day shapes or find their way to their own front doors. This was clearly very important of a skill for a god to have.
Just sees witches flying overhead and just bursts into song and dance, and they're all like, "This fucking, oh my god, that's where do I live again?"
Yeah. I know an 11th. If I have to lead loyal, long-loved friends into a fight, I can sing behind my shield, and they will go from strength to strength, unscathed to the battle, unscathed after battle, unscathed they return home.
Oh, you imagine in battle they're all like, "We're so gonna die," and then they just hear little Odin behind his shield singing. They're like, "Oh, thank fuck!" He's singing his little songs again.
I know a 12th. If I see a hanged man swinging from a tree with his heels above my head, I can cut and colour the runes so that he will come down and talk to me.
So then once the conversations are always like, "Get back up in that fucking tree."
The conversation's drawing to a close, so he just starts climbing the tree again and starts wrapping it around.
Visit me again, please.
Send Logan Paul next time. I know a 13th. If I sprinkle water over a child, he will never fall in the thick of battle, nor falter and sink in the swordplay. I know a 14th. If I so desire, I can tell men the names of the gods and the elves one by one. Few fools can do this. I know a 15th. The dwarf Theodorir sang it in front of Delling's doors, a charm of power for the gods, glory for the elves, wisdom for Odin.
Okay.
These next two are great.
Okay.
These are the cream of the crop, my friend. I know a 16th. If I long for love play, I can turn the mind and win the heart of a white-armed woman.
Oh. Okay.
Only white-armed
Only
women.
white arms. The rest of her can be like whatever colour.
So he can just like snap his fingers and women will suck his dick?
Do you reckon it's because like the only part of the skin they could see a woman back then were her arms? Because it was like
I think it's
anything-
because Vikings were pale and
yeah, I don't know.
ginger.
White skinned, fair enough. Like I'd get that because you know
but white
paleness.
armed,
But
I don't know.
why just localize it just to
I don't
the
think
arms?
it's a literal translation. I think it's the author taking a few liberties with
Maybe.
the storytelling. I know a 17th. Such a charm that a young girl would be loath to forsake me. Yep.
Was Odin
How
Cosby?
young, I wonder.
Do you reckon Odin's just Cosby?
See, the way it's written makes me wonder if he means what we think he means, or if he means that if a girl is in a mood with him, he can
Or if he's just
get them out of it.
if they just say no, I find you repulsive. He's like, what about now, bitch?
And the last one is who knows what. He says, I know an 18th. I will never tell it to a girl or married woman unless I am lying in her arms or she is my own sister. What you and you alone know is the most potent, and that is the last of the charms.
Right.
Those are the 18
Also,
powers of Odin.
you know, a 19th. If I'm ever constipated, I can make it so that I can poo.
I'm sure he could do that. So,
Do gods take shits? Probably. That's why humanity is so fucked up.
Yeah.
God's just taking shits on us every day. And I have this one. I call it Ragnarok.
this next story is probably my favourite of the tales in the book, but there are some really good ones.
Okay.
The World Serpent,
Jormungandr.
Jormungandr, and Fenrir the Wolf, and Hela were all children of Loki
Yes.
and his giant mistress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew this.
Obviously, I don't know if that's so true in the game, but perhaps by the third game, Loki will have grown up and will have to fight his...
It could be true.
Except Jormungandr already exists.
Yes, but Jormungandr was very, very quick to help Loki out, or you know, the kid out. And
They explain that as being because they're enemies of Odin, though.
yeah, and he also says he knows his pain, right? But they also explain that Jormungandr and Thor clash so violently that the snake gets sent back in time before he's even born.
I don't think that's how they meant it. I think they meant the cycles repeat themselves. So all the mythologies of Vikings have both already happened and will happen.
Yeah.
So
What I'm saying
it
is,
gets
like,
a bit complicated there.
because time's such a complicated concept in Norse mythology, maybe like Loki has and hasn't already sired the snake.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe the snake felt some sort of kinship with the kid, and that's why he was quick to help him out.
Yeah. So when Odin found out that Loki had these disgusting creatures as children, he cast the world serpent, Jormungandr, into the sea. He was a normal-sized snake at this point.
Yeah, and the sea grew to wrap around the earth and,
And bite his own tail.
and bite his own tail.
Odin cast Hela into Niflheim.
and not Helheim.
Not Helheim, where she erected a huge estate and was told to manage the dead, which I have to wonder if that means that Helheim is her estate. But again, each tale sort of changes the rules.
See, I thought Helheim was named after Hela or, vice versa.
Yeah.
But whatever.
But yeah, that's all that it said about Hela. But Hela is obviously Loki's brother in the Thor movies.
Sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how it happens. Like that.
Yeah, not at all.
No. See, like Marvel just take a lot of liberties with Norse mythology.
But like I said, there are some things that stick around. Odin let Fenrir stay. He just let him run around the golden fields of Asgard. But he grew larger and stronger until Odin's seers predicted that Fenrir would actually be the thing that kills Odin come Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So the gods crafted chains to try and hold the beast. The first time they went, they said to him, I bet you can't break these chains. And he said, put them around me, I'll break them. So they did. They put the chains around him, and he broke them. So they went and made the greatest chains they could possibly make, and came back and said, I bet you can't break these chains. So he broke the chains, obviously, once they put them around him. And so Odin suggested that they get the dwarves to craft a chain to hold Fenrir. And some of the dwarves that he asked, you may have heard their names before.
Brock and Sindri?
No, but well, we'll come back to that. But no, let me read these names, and eventually you'll start to go, what?
Okay.
Na, Nain, Nain, Niping, Dane, Biffa, Baffa, Bomber, and Nori.
Oh. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Clearly Tolkien was inspired.
Yeah.
So they did. They made a chain using 6 things.
Okay. None of these things you can make a chain out of, right?
Well, none of these. Well, let me just read it. They made a chain using the sound a cat makes when it moves.
Okay.
A woman's beard. Beard.
They mean not a beard on her face or like a southern beard.
No, the beard on her face.
Okay.
The roots of a mountain.
Okay.
The sinews of a bear.
Fair enough.
The breath of a fish. And a bird's spit.
Okay.
And they took this to Odin, and Odin asks, what did they craft it from? And he was told these 6 items, and he said, preposterous, these things don't exist. And the person who brought him the chain said, well, that's because the dwarves had them all along.
Oh, they got bants. Got some banter going on there.
So they take this chain to Fenrir, and they say to him, bet you can't break this chain. But this chain is more of a ribbon. It's very thin, very small, delicate. And Fenrir looks at it and goes, well, of course I can break that. What's going on here? If there's some magic involved, then of course I'm not going to let you put that around me because I'm never going to break free. So he asks for a token of trust. And he asks one of the gods to put his hand in his mouth. And so if he cannot break from the chains, he will bite that god's hand off. And obviously he thinks that's enough for them to be honest and remove the chains if you can't break them, sort of thing. This was actually mentioned in God of War. Do you know which god that is? Who sacrificed his hand to Fenrir to save Odin?
I remember. But
I don't know if it was Odin in God of War, but it was Tyr. Yeah, Tyr was the only one that offered his hand up to shackle Fenrir in the hopes of saving Odin come Ragnarok. But yeah, that was the end of that story. They took him down to Midgard, buried him miles and miles underground. The actual measurement I don't have, but it was something that to us doesn't seem like a lot. I think it was probably 9 miles. But to us it's like, that's not that far. But to a Viking,
it's probably something really like convoluted and ridiculous, like 9 tosses of a coin deep. Like,
no, I remember it being miles. But I don't know that they measured in miles, so it was probably, again, the author taking liberties. And they they tied his chain to a bigger chain and trapped that big chain between two rocks, and all of these chains and rocks had names.
Yeah.
So,
Do you reckon that's how they explain like earthquakes and shit? Fenrir's growling again.
yeah, it was probably that. So, I've got another story for you.
Obviously.
One day, Loki decided to shear Sif's head.
Okay.
Cut all the hair off her head. Lady Sif, unlike in Marvel, had golden hair. Literal golden hair.
Wow.
And so, obviously, when he cut it off as a joke, Thor wasn't too happy about him because that's his wife in original mythology. And so he threatened Loki until he promised an alternative. So he went to the sons of Ivaldi,
Yeah.
who you may have heard of.
Yeah, I know about Aldi.
Ivaldi owns the workshop. Is it a workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Niflheim, in God of War. So he takes it to the sons of Ivaldi. Well, it doesn't take it. It goes to them. And he has them spin him a wig out of pure gold. And they also, since the furnace is already warm and they don't want to waste that heat, they also make two more gifts for the gods. For Freya, male Freya,
Yeah.
they make a ship. And for Odin, they make a spear. Instead of taking it back to Asgard, he took a left at some point and went into the realm of dwarves. And he showed them the gifts. These dwarves were called Brock and
Sindri.
Atri. I couldn't find any reference to Sindri at all. So I think it's one of those things where he's just called different things in different renditions. And,
Yeah, maybe.
um,
Are you going to talk about the story of when Brock and Atri or Sindri or whatever made the stuff for Thor? Is that in that book?
they made his hammer, which is in this. Yeah, it's this story.
Okay.
So he challenged Brock and Atri to make finer gifts. So they made a bow, a ring,
Yeah.
and Mjolnir. And obviously, they took those gifts back, and the story was that he wanted the gods to say whether the dwarves' gifts or Ivaldi's son's gifts were the best. And I didn't write it down because it wasn't that interesting or important, but
Because I've got a story up here.
they keep all the gifts, basically.
Apparently, it was Loki who bet it on the wiki page as well.
Oh my god,
That's ridiculous, isn't it? That?
it's so inconsistent. I'm sorry about your penis, bro. Ridiculous.
So yeah, the wiki page just call him Sindri.
Oh, right, okay, that's cool.
And it was Loki bet the two brothers that they couldn't make finer gifts or something.
Yeah.
So Sindri and Brock accept Loki's. I don't know why it says Brock and Sindri. It says Sindri and Brock, which doesn't come off the tongue very well.
Yeah.
So Brock and Sindri accept Loki's bet, and the two brothers begin working. They begin to work in their workshop, and Sindri puts a pig skin in the forge and tells his brother Brock never to stop working the bellows until he comes and takes out what he put in.
Yeah, and Loki turns into an insect and stings
Loki,
Brock in the eyes.
in disguise as a fly, comes and bites Brock on the arm. Nevertheless, he continues to pump the bellows. And then Sindri takes out Gullinbursti, which is Freya's boar with shining bristles.
Yeah, the boar from God of War.
Yeah. This is male Freya, though.
Yeah, well,
whatever.
they're interchangeable, apparently.
Next, Sindri puts some gold in the forge and gives Brock the same order. Again, Loki, still in the guise of a fly, comes and again bites Brock's neck twice as hard as he had bit in his arm. Just before Brock continues to work the bellows, despite the pain, Sindri returns, pulls out Dropnir,
Which is a ring?
Odin's ring.
Yeah,
which
turns
drops
into 9 rings every night.
it drops 8 duplicates every 9th night.
Every 9th night, right? Yeah.
Finally, Sindri puts some iron in the forge and tells Brock not to stop pumping the bellows. Loki comes a third time and bites. This time he bites Brock on the eyelid even harder. The bite is so deep that it draws blood. The blood runs into Brock's eyes and forces him to stop working the bellows just long enough to wipe his eyes.
Thor's handle is too short.
This time, why are you doing this?
We don't need the full story. There's a lot more
fucking
stories to
blocking
tell.
me. So yeah, anyway. that brief few seconds where you want pumping the bellows makes the fucking hammer handle really short. Thanks for killing the story.
You're welcome.
Go on.
So my next story is about how Freya sold herself to the four dwarves.
Go on then. Which I'm ready for this one.
Which I know you're very excited for.
Are there any tissues nearby?
No way.
It's
I thought you just need to blow your nose or something. I'm like, would you want me to go get some?
No.
So, as I already said, she sold herself to four dwarves in exchange for a golden necklace because she's addicted to gold. Whenever she's depicted as crying in these stories, she cries gold.
Cool.
So the trade was worth it for her. To get gold for sex.
She could literally just cry herself a necklace, but okay.
Yeah. But Loki saw what she did, saw her having sex with these four dwarves on 4 separate nights in exchange for one necklace. And
was like, where are these divorce papers?
Odin ordered Loki to retrieve the necklace, which he did by turning it into a flea. And it says that he had fun on her bosom for a small while, which is, as a flea, I'm sure is very exciting. Odin said he'd only forgive her if she started a war in Midgard and used magic to ensure that the dead came back to life, and the war kept going because of that.
Odin's a dick.
They portray him as a dick in God of War, but he does do some weird shit. So, I don't know if it's his name in God of War, but do you recall the giant called Thrym with a chisel in his head?
Yes.
Which is a big part of the story.
They did talk about Thrym, but they also talked about Thamur.
Okay.
Are they different giants?
I'm not sure. But as I was rowing towards Thrym, or away from Thrym, Mimir was telling the story in the boat about how Thrym stole Thor's hammer, and when he went to get it back, that's when he killed Thrym and put the chisel into his head, etc., etc. And that's how that giant died.
Because on the map it's called Thamur's corpse.
Well, there you go. It's called Thrym in the story I'm about to tell. So,
but I'm pretty sure he talked about Thrym and Thamur in the game. So I don't know if they were the same giants or not.
I see.
Or different giants, or related. Maybe.
I can see him. I can hear him in my head going Thrym.
Fucking Thor apparently has killed loads of people, so
yeah,
maybe he killed both.
He's like in the stories I've been reading, he just kills for the sake of it quite often.
It's a dick.
So yeah, this giant stole Thor's hammer and asked for Freya's hand in marriage in return. Afraid of being seen as a whore following her excursion with the dwarves, she refused to help. She refused to help so hard that the veins on her neck pumped outwards, and the necklace that she fucked 4 dwarves for broke.
Wow. All that fucking debauchery, and she goes and breaks it.
So the gods unite and have a grand meeting to discuss how they're going to get Mjolnir back, because without it, the gods are defenseless, and if anybody finds out they don't have Mjolnir, they're all fucked, basically. Yeah. So Heimdall has a great suggestion that Thor dresses as a woman.
Okay.
In a bridal gown with a veil covering his face, and pretends to be Freya and goes through with most of the marriage until he has his hammer back.
What if he's all like, we need to consummate before the marriage? Like,
this was obviously a delightful idea to Loki, who tagged along to ensure he didn't miss any of it. At the wedding, the hammer was brought out to Thor, and he quickly brandished it
and just started smashing heads.
Killed everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
Killed them all.
Mm-hmm.
Except his brother, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this you know, in Red Riding Hood, where she's like, my grandmother, what big teeth you have.
They're just like, oh my God, Frey, you've got some rippling biceps.
No, so basically, Thrym goes in for a kiss and is like, things like, my thought, what red eyes you have. And Loki, who's disguised as a handmaid, and it like covers for it by saying, oh, he's been up for 9 nights, unable to contain his excitement for the wedding day and stuff like that. So it's very Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
There are a lot more stories to tell.
What if Thor was just like, do you know what? Fuck it, man. I want to see what it's like. This married lark, you know. Malarkey. Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm sure Thrym would find out at some point that he's got a big fucking throbbing dick. But yeah, there's more stories to tell, and I'd be happy to tell them
in another episode.
If people so wish to hear that. What time are we at?
We're just gone past an hour.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I had one more story I could tell if we were short, but I think that we'll leave it there.
Good place to end it, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I'd be very happy to do this again and very excited to tell more tales. In fact, I probably won't be able to contain my excitement, and you'll probably hear about 1 or 2 of these in future episodes. But for now, for our Viking special, I think we're done.
Yeah. Fun fact before we close out. Do you know the woman who voice acts and performs as Freya in God of War?
Mm-hmm.
She was in Parks and Recreation briefly. She was the woman study teacher for what's his face? Chris Pratt's character.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's her.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Not as interesting as these fucking Norse mythology stories, though, man.
No, I honestly, I've been so enamored by these. It's been ridiculous.
They're just like, they're both very interesting, like, and also it appeals to that like 12-year-old boy inside. Is like, oh man,
they're also pretty bizarre,
and they're extremely crazy.
Like I'll take the book with me to go for like a quick shit, and then I'll be in there for like half an hour with numb legs when I come back out. I just remembered, actually, there was a question I wrote down that I wanted to ask you before I came up with the idea for the Norse episode.
Okay.
Which I think is a good way to close off.
Let's do it.
The episode, which is...
Close off, just like you were closing off the poo while you're reading the book.
Yeah.
Just pinching it off.
Exactly.
Let's pinch off this episode.
This great streaming turd of an episode. Yeah, I just wanted your idea with as little fact as possible and mostly opinion on why, when we look back at gods like these, like the Greek gods, like the Egyptian gods, like Viking gods, we can all unanimously as a civilization say that's ridiculous, that's ludicrous. Obviously, we don't believe in that. Yet, there are pretty similar stories and pretty similar ideals that come from modern religions that people are quite happy to believe.
Well, it's just Christianity won out over like paganism and that.
Yeah.
So like obviously we've just grown up. Like it's like in England, right? We've got certain traditions and the like culture and the way we act. If we go to another land, like go to China, and they've got very different things, it's a bit weird for us. And I think it's just the same thing. Like Christianity has been one of the main religions in the world for so long now that when we think about Norse mythology, even though like a few like 2,000 years ago, something like everyone believed that in Europe, it's just hard to believe anyone thinking like, yo, that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think it's because different times, different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, without getting into like historical facts and stuff like that.
No, yeah, there's definitely more to it than just we grew up. But
yeah, and plus I think it's just generally everyone's a bit more clued in about how the things work now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I bet even Christians read shit in the Bible. Christianites believe shit, like read shit in the Bible, like how the world was created in so many days, and kind of go, maybe not.
Well, I've noticed a sort of unanimous agreement among most Christians that aren't, I can't think of the word for it. When you're a bit crazy about your religion.
Extremist?
Yeah. Non-extremist Christians often say that the Bible is interpretive and you just take what you want from it, which is something I can get behind.
Exactly.
You could quite easily make a book of Norse mythologies your Bible and just interpret what you want about life from that.
Maybe that's how it was back then. Like all these stories were very interpretive.
Yeah, I get the impression from reading this and reading some of the sources that Vikings weren't that adamant that this is actually how the world was born, but more that it was an interpretive and it was more a creative passion, something to base poetry on and stuff like that.
Maybe that's how it was, and the reason we look back at it now and think, how could anyone believe that, is because we're looking at it a very like literal perspective. Like, oh, they must have believed this is exactly how it happened. We're all born from a giant sweat or something like that.
One of the main sources in the book is a guy called Snorri, who was converted to Christianity before writing the stories of Vikings. So it's almost as though he said, okay, I accept that this isn't what happened and I accept this new religion, but I don't want our culture to get lost.
Yeah.
And so
that converting to Christianity though, that's fucking awful for the Vikings, mate. If they ever caught up to him. But yeah, good way to close out the episode, I think.
I thought it was worth asking.
Definitely.
So thanks for listening. Really appreciate that, and I appreciate you staying with me while I indulge in one of my passions. And I'm very happy to do this again if you'd like it. If you'd like me to, and you can find all the shit on Twitter, and I'll probably talk some more about the Viking shit on Twitter. I don't know. I'll see what kind of reaction this gets.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Right. I have plenty planned to talk about for next week.
And be as weird as Odin. I'm not going to turn around this week. I think I figured it out.
It is right in front of you.